Most people think McDonald's makes money selling burgers. But McDonald's hasn't been a burger company for decades. It's one of the most powerful real estate empires on the planet, and the food is just how it gets you in the door to pay the rent. Think about what it actually means that McDonald's has 44,000 locations across 98 countries. That's not a restaurant chain, that's a network. And when you look at the scale of it, the assumption almost writes itself. A company selling to 68 million people every single day must be printing money on every burger, every fry, every order. That's the obvious read. That's what most people walk away believing. But here's the thing nobody tells you. McDonald's doesn't run most of those restaurants. Not even close. Roughly 95% of McDonald's locations worldwide are owned and operated by independent franchisees. Local business owners who signed a deal, put up their own capital, and are running the day-to-day operation themselves. McDonald's corporate is not flipping the patties. It's not managing the staff. It's not sweating the food costs or the utility bills. That's the franchisee's problem. McDonald's just collects. So sit with that for a second. You've got the most recognized fast food brand on the planet, 44,000 locations, nearly 70 million customers walking through the doors every day. And the company whose name is on every single sign is not actually running the show at 95% of those locations. That is not how most people picture it. Most people picture McDonald's as this massive restaurant operator churning out food at scale. The reality is almost the opposite. And that gap between what people assume and what's actually happening is exactly where the real business model lives. Because if McDonald's isn't the one selling you the burger, you have to ask a very simple question. Where does the money actually come from? The franchisee is taking on the operational risk. The franchisee is paying the staff, ordering the supplies, keeping the lights on. So what is McDonald's actually selling? And to whom? The answer starts with the franchise agreement. But the franchise agreement is only the first layer. And once you see what's sitting underneath it, the whole thing reframes completely. The fees are real, the royalties are real. But they are not the deepest part of this model. And that's exactly where we're going next. Every franchisee who signs a deal with McDonald's agrees to two things right out of the gate. First, an upfront franchise fee just to get in the door. Then, every single month after that, they pay McDonald's a royalty. A percentage cut of their gross sales, not their profit, their gross sales. That distinction matters more than it sounds. Think about what that means in practice. It doesn't matter if the franchisee is having a slow quarter. It doesn't matter if food costs spiked, or they had to hire extra staff, or the drive-thru backed up for a week. McDonald's royalty comes off the top of every dollar that walks through that door. The franchisee absorbs the risk. McDonald's collects the revenue. And here's the structure that makes this work. According to industry analysis, McDonald's retains roughly 82% of the profit generated from its franchised locations, compared to only about 16% from the locations it operates directly. 16%. The restaurants McDonald's actually runs. With all the overhead, the labor, the food costs, those are the least profitable part of the business. The ones it doesn't run, that's where the margins live. So you have a company collecting a royalty percentage on billions of dollars in sales across tens of thousands of locations, while carrying almost none of the operating costs. No payroll headaches, no food waste, no utility bills. The franchisee handles all of that. McDonald's just sits at the top of that arrangement and takes its cut. Every month, whether business is booming or barely moving, that's a genuinely different business than selling burgers. That's closer to what a licensor does or what a landlord does. And that word is not an accident. Because the royalty structure is only the first layer of how McDonald's gets paid from each location. The franchise fees are significant. The royalty stream is significant. But they are not the deepest part of this model. What sits underneath the restaurant, literally the land it's built on, is where this whole thing gets a level more ruthless. McDonald's keeps 82% of the profit from franchised locations, but only 16% from the ones it actually runs. So, honestly, which would you rather own? The franchise or the company-operated location? Drop your answer in the comments below, because the royalty stream is just the surface. The land underneath each restaurant is where this model gets truly ruthless. Now here's where the curtain actually pulls back. The royalty stream, that monthly percentage McDonald's collects off every franchisee's gross sales, is already a remarkable business. But Harry Sonneborn, the financial architect who built McDonald's corporate structure in the early days, reportedly said something that reframes the entire company in one sentence. "We are not in the food business. We are in the real estate business." That line is not a metaphor. It is a literal description of the revenue model. Here's what actually happens when a new McDonald's location opens. McDonald's corporate, not the franchisee, typically acquires or secures the long-term lease on the land and the building. Then it turns around and subleases that property back to the franchisee at a markup. So the franchisee isn't just paying a royalty on their sales. They're paying McDonald's rent every single month on top of the royalty. Two separate revenue streams from one location flowing back to corporate before the franchisee has covered a single operational cost. Think about what that does to the math. You're a franchisee. You open your doors. Every dollar a customer spends, a percentage goes to McDonald's as a royalty. And every month, regardless of how many customers walked in, a property payment goes to McDonald's as rent. McDonald's gets paid twice. You absorb every operational risk in between. That's not a restaurant company. That's a landlord with a globally recognized brand doing its marketing. And the scale of that real estate portfolio is almost hard to process. Across 44,000 locations, McDonald's controls some of the most strategically placed commercial real estate on the planet. Corner lots, highway exits, high-traffic urban corridors. The golden arches aren't just a logo. They're a signal that the land underneath has been validated by one of the most sophisticated site selection operations in the world. McDonald's picks the location, McDonald's secures the property, then McDonald's charges someone else to use it, while that someone else runs the actual restaurant. The burger is what gets 68 million people through the door every day. But the land beneath the restaurant is how McDonald's gets paid for all of it. And that distinction is what makes this model genuinely different from anything else in the food industry. The royalty makes McDonald's a licensor. The real estate makes it a landlord. Together, those two revenue streams create something that most restaurant companies could never build. And that's exactly why the financial performance of this model is so unusually stable. That dual revenue structure, royalties stacking on top of rent from the same location every single month, is what makes McDonald's financial performance look almost unfair compared to every other company in the food industry. And once you understand why it's so stable, the $214 billion market cap McDonald's was carrying as of January 2026 stops looking like a mystery and starts looking like the only logical conclusion. Here's what investors are actually paying for when they buy into McDonald's. They're not betting on whether people will keep eating burgers. They're betting on a structure where the operational risk has been almost entirely offloaded to 44,000 independent business owners. Food costs spike. The franchisee absorbs it. Labor gets expensive. The franchisee handles it. Supply chain gets disrupted. Still the franchisee's problem. McDonald's corporate collects its royalty percentage and its rent check regardless. That's not a restaurant company's income statement. That's closer to a utility company's. Predictable, recurring, structurally insulated from the day-to-day chaos of actually running a restaurant. And McDonald's isn't sitting still on that advantage. The Velocity Growth Plan, the company's current strategic framework, is built around a specific idea. You don't need to open a new location to grow royalty income. You just need the existing locations to do more volume. Retain the customers who already come in regularly. Win back the ones who drifted away. Convert the occasional visitor into someone who shows up 3 times a week instead of once. Every single one of those conversions increases gross sales at the location level. And because McDonald's royalty is calculated as a percentage of gross sales, McDonald's income grows automatically without building a single new restaurant or taking on a single new lease. That's compounding without capital deployment. It's the kind of growth lever that pure restaurant operators simply don't have access to. Now, to be fair, McDonald's isn't immune to pressure. Rising costs, shifting consumer habits, and real competition are challenges the company navigates constantly. But here's the structural difference. When a traditional restaurant chain hits a rough quarter, every location bleeds. When McDonald's hits a rough quarter, the franchisees feel it first. Corporate revenue compresses at the margins, but the rent still clears, and the royalty percentage still runs. That asymmetry is the whole game. And once you see it clearly in McDonald's, you start noticing it everywhere else. In every major franchise brand, in every company that figured out how to own the infrastructure instead of just operating inside it. Once you see the structure clearly inside McDonald's, you can't unsee it anywhere else. And that's the real takeaway here. Because here's what we've actually been building toward this whole time. McDonald's doesn't primarily make money selling burgers. It makes money owning the infrastructure that burger businesses run on. The food is the front door. The real estate and the royalty stream are the engine. And those two things together, rent plus royalties, from the same location, month after month, create a machine that most people walk past every day without ever recognizing for what it is. Next time you drive past a McDonald's, look at the building differently. You're not looking at a restaurant. You're looking at a real estate asset with a drive-through attached. The golden arches aren't just a brand signal. They're a marker that someone at McDonald's corporate ran the numbers on that exact corner, validated the traffic, secured the land, and then found an independent business owner to operate the location and absorb every risk that comes with it. McDonald's gets paid whether the quarter is good or bad. The franchisee finds out first when it isn't. That's the mental model. And once you have it, you start seeing the same pattern everywhere. The most profitable companies in the world are almost never the ones doing the visible work. They're the ones who figured out how to own the layer underneath the visible work, the infrastructure, the license, the platform, the land, and then charge everyone operating on top of it. McDonald's just happens to do it at a scale of 44,000 locations, 68 million customers a day, across 98 countries, dressed in red and yellow so you think you're buying lunch. That's not an accident. That's a deliberately engineered business model built from the ground up. And it's why a company that appears to sell $4 burgers carries a market cap north of $218 billion. $4 the burger gets you in the door. The real estate keeps the money flowing. And understanding that distinction between what a company appears to sell and what it actually monetizes is the kind of thinking that separates people who understand how wealth is built from people who just spend it. Subscribe for more breakdowns like this, and watch the next video to see which brand runs the exact same play.